Gen Zs and Alphas definitely approach working hours and work-life balance in a much healthier and a better way than we've historically done. So it's definitely not a bad thing. And actually, we can learn a lot from the new generations that are coming into the industry because they respect their time more than we probably did.
Welcome to the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we unwrap the joys and struggles of working in the food industry so you can thrive in what you do best while sustaining a rewarding and fulfilling career or business. We are your hosts, Lucy Wager, food industry consultant,
and Amy Wilkinson, food industry coach. We've worked in the food industry for the last 20 years and we're here to share with you the benefit of our hindsight. Our podcast is for you to find new ways to cope with the daily struggles, but mostly to inspire you to work on what's not working to ultimately improve your career or business long term. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of O for Food's Sake. Today I am riding solo, but I have a major exciting guest with me. So unfortunately Lucy can't be here today because she can't speak. So she could have come, but she wouldn't have been much use. So she has handed over the reins to me and I'm really excited for this episode. So today we have with us Rigg, who is lead product developer at Tesco's and co-founder of Flourish in Food Mentoring. Hi Cam, how you doing?
Hello, lovely to see you, Amy. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's so exciting. I mean, poor Cam has had to put up with my professionalism up till this point. I've only knocked my microphone over once and I've moved my drink away. So I feel like I'm not being as professional because Lucy's not here to tell me off. But anyway, so we met, I don't know, a few years ago, via LinkedIn.
Virtually a few years ago, yeah.
Sort of via LinkedIn, both quite active people on LinkedIn. And obviously you had founded the Flourish in Food Mentoring Scheme. So I think we kind of got to know each other through that. And then we obviously ran a Nourishing Network event together. And then over the last year, we've been working together with the team at Tesco. So we've got to know each other a little bit better.
Absolutely. It feels like I've known you a lot longer than that time, though.
Yeah. Oh, why is that?
Don't know. That's a good. I'm going to say that's a good thing.
Okay, good. No, I know what you mean. And it's funny because like Lucy was saying to me, she was like, oh, it's a real shame that I can't come on because I really feel like I want to get to know Cam better. Like she feels like the same. Like we kind of feel like we know each other through the power of social media. But actually the reality is don't know each other that well. So we're going to find out a little bit more about you today.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. So start by telling us how you ended up doing what you're doing. How have you ended up in food retail?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I was interested in food and nutrition from a really young age. So I grew up in rural West Cumbria, not very well known for its food. But at the weekends, I go and visit my nan and she would always be baking. So usually a blueberry pie or some gingerbread, which was delicious. And I'd help out whenever I could. And I guess I was lucky enough, and in hindsight, really lucky to have a fantastic food technology teacher at school who was called Beth Rothering. Hopefully she'll listen and tune in.
I'm sure she will.
And she taught me from year 8 all the way till year 13. So I do my GCSEs and A-levels with Beth. And she was one of those teachers that just made everything click. She's super passionate about her students and she was super passionate about both culinary food, but also educating students on nutrition. And I guess I definitely credit Beth for getting me to where I am today because without her, I wouldn't have decided to go to university and study food. So, and it's really interesting, and there'll be a number of people listening that will have been taught by Beth. So although we came from a small school in West Cumbria, there are a lot of people in the food industry that decided to go into the profession because of her. And even her son is in the food industry. So,
oh, wow. That says a lot about her and her passion, doesn't it? And like we're always talking all the time, aren't we, about how to get people into the industry, and it starts at school, right?
100%. It starts at school because unless you've got a want, but ultimately you probably need a teacher to drive that want into you at that age.
Yeah, you have no clue at that age, really, do you?
No clue whatsoever. And if it's not on the curriculum, you're really unlikely to go into the food industry. So really lucky. And I then went on to study food and nutrition at Sheffield, Hallam. And if I had the opportunity, I'd do it all over again because I absolutely loved it. And it's still
I always use that. everyone talks about how great Sheffield Hallam was.
Yeah.
When I was on a graduate scheme, I was the only one that didn't go to Sheffield Hallam, and I had proper FOMO. So what was so great about Sheffield Hallam then?
You missed out.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's so nice when you meet people in the industry that have studied at Sheffield Hallam, because you've all just got a mutual ground of how fantastic it was.
Yeah.
I think they've got fantastic facilities, absolutely. And Sheffield's a really fun city to be in as a student, but the lecturers and the course content, I think, set you up perfectly to set off into your first role within the food industry. I think they strike that really lovely balance between lab work and practical work, and actually you get a real holistic overview of what it's like to be in the food industry. And I think, that's probably what sets Sheffield Hallam apart for me when I was looking at unis versus some of the others, where it may be more sciencey, or it may be a little bit more chefy, that you almost had that total package for me.
So it has the breadth, but also the, well, I'm trying to think of the word, but it's like applicability, like to real life.
You could apply it.
Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah, you could apply it, and it offered a sandwich degree actually, which was another thing. So, and I'd advocate anybody that's studying food, if your university course offers a sandwich degree, take it, because that gives you a real-time opportunity to understand what it's like within the food industry as a student rather than as a graduate. And I guess you get some little perks as a student because you're still finding your feet, and you can make mistakes a lot quicker and a lot faster than you as a graduate.
Are lower.
The expectations are very different. So definitely take that opportunity up. And then,
so where did you do your placement then?
So I did my placement at Pizza Hut. So I'd already made the big move from Cumbria to Sheffield, and I made the big move from Sheffield to sunny Dunstable, which for those that don't know is near Bedfordshire. And I worked next to Elstree Studios actually, so in Boreham Wood, which was fun, very fun, on £15,000 a year, which at the time I was like, oh my God, I'm rich. Actually, I was not rich. London is so expensive.
You were way too close to London for 15 grand to go anywhere.
I started off in the technical quality team, which I had no intention of ever working in. So I always wanted to be in development. But I thought, you know what have I got to lose? It's 12 months. I'll probably learn a lot. That's applicable to development still. And then it's done. I've done 12 months in technical. It's done. I've done that part of the career. I can then move into development and actually probably have some transferable skills that I can then take with me into a future development role. So a lot of fun, a lot learned in 12 months. It felt like I was there a lot longer than 12 months, actually. I think because it was quite a small team, I got the opportunity to see and be part of a lot of things. So great experience.
Yeah, and like you say, it's really interesting because I was a technical graduate and I only did a 6-month placement in technical and very quickly knew that it wasn't for me because my brain is very not compliant. So it's much more creative than it is compliant. But like you say, there is something about that grounding that you get, well, from two aspects, that it was a small team and it's not a small business, but a small team in terms of the team you were working in, but also just, I don't even think it's necessarily the technical skills and stuff that you learn from working in other departments. It's the empathy you then have that it's different for everybody in the industry, isn't it?
Definitely. And some of my best friends I met at Pizza Hut were in technical because whatever role you're in, you build really close relationships with your natural working team, right? And I have a lot of sympathy for anybody that works in technical because it's really, really blooming difficult. Yeah,
it is really hard. One of my best friends is quite senior in technical and she's in tears sometimes because of the pressure. So
the pressure, I think, for sure. Yeah.
So you did your placement. What next?
I did placement and then, I guess I'm coming up to my 10th year in the industry. I don't feel old enough, I guess, to be at my 10th year in the industry, but I'm still relatively new into it. So did my placement, went back to uni, did my final year. Didn't particularly want to be back doing my final year because I had a taste for money at that point, a taste for the industry. So to be fair, grafted really hard in the final year to get the grades that I wanted and then went back to Pizza Hut actually. So I had a fantastic director when I was on placement year and they were very nice to offer me a guaranteed role when I finished uni. So moved back down, but into development. So they knew I wanted to go into development. They knew I didn't want to go back into technical. And Adrian offered me a role back as a product developer. So took that role for 12 months. And then, long story short, I needed to be back in the north. I just couldn't do the south anymore. It wasn't for me. It wasn't working personally. And however much I loved the business, I had to make a call that kind of my own enjoyment and my own like kind of work-life balance was more important. So I started looking for opportunities, and I grew up in a house where my mum worked in a Co-op supermarket. So I grew up with Co-op food in the fridges. And if you cast your mind back 20 years ago, I'm sure you'll remember this, Amy, quality of food at Co-op wasn't fantastic. So mum was like, why don't you think about Co-op? They're in Manchester. I was like, oh, is the food that good? And she was like, they're on a transformation program. Like, think about it. And a role actually came up as a product developer at Co-op. At the time of looking, I thought, okay, maybe the stars are aligned. Let's apply for it. Went for an interview, instantly loved it. The team that interviewed me, and they're both still there now, Paul and Rebecca, they just gave me a really good feel for the business. And I'd done lots of research. I'd known my mum had loved it for a long time, but in a very different setting. So joined there as a product developer back in 2017, and then spent six and a half years with Co-op. Absolutely fantastic time. Learned a lot about Co-op, learned a lot about the industry, learned a lot about myself, and then made the jump to Tesco last year, in September last year. So I'm coming up 15, 16 months at Tesco in my role as lead developer, and yeah, absolutely loving it.
Oh, fabulous. Now, you've skipped a bit in Co-op.
I've got lots to talk about in there, yeah.
Well, because I always went, and I sort of followed this, like I say, from a distance through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That at Co-op, you moved across into a buying role at one point, didn't you?
I did, yes. I'm not sure if my sins or not. No, I absolutely loved it. So how I got there, Amy, essentially, I'd done about 4 years in development and Co-op. I absolutely loved every minute of it. I'd worked on a number of categories, and I was ready to take the next step up, but unfortunately, or fortunately for Co-op, they had a really good track record of keeping people, which meant there was very little movement in the systems. That meant it was really difficult to progress upwards within the team. And I probably got to a stage where I was becoming slightly resentful and starting to lose the passion for what I had. So instead of that coming out in the work that I was doing and how I portrayed myself as a colleague, I looked for other opportunities to be in the business because I loved working in the business. I didn't particularly want to leave. And my mentor at the time was like, I've got a position in my team. Why don't you interview for it? I think you'd be really good. And it was in buy-in. And the thing I was most nervous about for buy-in was I probably at the time was a bit too nice, a bit too soft. And I'd worked with buyers the whole time and thought, oh God, I'm just not sure I can do the job that you're doing. But the category that I was interviewing for was really heavily own brand rather than branded. And actually, that definitely makes or breaks whether you're going to enjoy that category, depending on how you are as a person. So I knew I wasn't moving too far away from food. I was still going to have that high level of interaction. So went for it, got it, and it probably couldn't have came at a worse time economically because I joined in the midst of COVID and the Russia-Ukraine war. Which meant buying food was really, really difficult. Prices were going up. You were having to I think my first day I had to do a negotiation. I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never negotiated before.
I'm sat here thinking the same when I moved from development into commercial. I was just sat on the other end of the phone going, I don't know what I'm doing.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I didn't want the supplier to know I didn't know what I was doing. So it's been like hard negotiating. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I think it did an all right job because I stayed there for nearly 2 years. But I had some fantastic peers around me, which definitely helped. A fantastic buying assistant, Harriet, who was a godsend because she was probably thinking, this guy's came in, absolutely no idea what he's doing, and he's asking me all these questions. She was fantastic. I had a fantastic manager and mentor. So I was lucky in that sense. I had a wealth of knowledge around me, and actually I just needed to bring my behaviours across because all the skills I could learn on the job. I was actively learning on the job because it was all foreign language to me.
Yeah. But I guess, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth because I'm comparing to my experience. Like you say, there's so much transferable skills. And actually, if people are willing to take a chance on you, it's great to push yourself out of that comfort zone and learn those new skills. Realise that things like negotiation, you do have the skill set for because it's really influencing people, which you do in development anyway.
You do in development a lot, yeah.
But then also going, actually, it turns out that this isn't what I want to do. And I want to, you know, what the core of what, I don't know if that's how it ended up. I mean, I then went into marketing, but it was almost like, I mean, mine ended in a burnout. So I probably stepped out. I didn't step out of it soon enough, but almost like I can do this, but it isn't what I want to do, like long term. Is that what's made you switch back or?
Yeah, I guess I always wanted to climb the career ladder and I could see myself doing that in development. I couldn't see myself doing that when I was a buying manager. So I was very content as a buying manager, but I didn't necessarily want to be a category buying manager. And I guess I went there very much as a sidestep to broaden my skill set, not with the intent to stay there forever. And I actually didn't intend to stay there for 2 years. So it was a bit longer than I'd expected to kind of sit in the seat, but a fantastic experience, a lot learned, but I was definitely ready to get back into development. So when the role came up at Tesco, everything aligned, the timings aligned, and it was at the role that I really wanted ultimately.
Yeah, and unfortunately weren't able to get in Manchester, so you're now travelling.
I'm now doing a 360-mile round journey down to the office each week, but I do that because I love the business, I love the team, and ultimately I'm really passionate about what we're doing there, and I think we are doing great things there. And as the team start to churn out more and more development, the development is fantastic, and it's just an actual pleasure to lead a team of individuals that are doing great things in a great business.
Yeah, and it is, I think it really shows, doesn't it, how different things are right for you at different times and stages in your career. Because one of the things going through my head was, well, he's not getting paid 15 grand a year to do it anymore, hopefully. to go all the way down there. But also, you know, it's what life stage you're at, isn't it? And what the different priorities, it's like different levers. Because I think a lot of times people get fixed in a mindset of, well, I've said I'm not going to do that, or I am going to do this, and that's the way they stick. But actually, you've kind of diversified and seen other routes to get what you want. So you're ambitious, right?
Yeah, definitely ambitious. So I guess doing something, living in Manchester and working in Welwyn Garden City doesn't come without commitment. And I guess I'm lucky. Well, I've got an unhappy fiance at home during the week who has to cook his own dinner, but he backs what I want to do, and he knows that that's going to set us up for the right future, and ultimately it's the right pathway to get to the end goal. So absolutely, it's commitment, but it's because I want to climb that ladder, and I want to be in ultimately I want my directors to see at some point in time. So you're listening to that, people at Tesco's, just putting that out there. But you've got to quite a senior position, quite a relatively young age, like you say, you're 10 years into your career. So talk to me about how you've achieved that, and what have the challenges been with getting there? Yeah, sure. I guess, like I said, I've always been really ambitious, and I've really wanted to climb the career ladder. And if I go back to that role at Peter originally, it wasn't in a function that I wanted to be, but I knew it would give me a really good grounding within the industry, and it would allow me to develop a skill set that I probably wouldn't develop within development. And I think that has paid dividends because it pushed me outside of my comfort zone. It allowed me to try something new, and ultimately it broadened my skill set. So that definitely helped. I think I've always had a really defined personal development plan. And I've made sure that every manager that I've had has seen it, been aware of it, and they've been able to support me on it. So whilst ultimately it's for me to drive my own personal development plan, if I've got a manager that supports me and wants to help me drive it, then I'm in a really, really good position. So I think having the right manager has been really important, but making sure that I've got the right mentors too. And I've had a number of mentors at different stages in my career, and I've made sure they've been from different disciplines. So if I've wanted to work on improving my holistic thinking and driving forward category strategy, for example, I've looked for a mentor in that space so that they're perfectly set to be able to direct me in the right direction. And I think some people will naturally look for a mentor within their space or development, so look for somebody in development. And I've not necessarily found that helpful. I've found it more helpful, more beneficial getting somebody that's completely impartial and maybe not within the team, because they're able to take out the emotion and just give me a real grounded knowledge and sharing of expertise, skill set and behaviours. So yeah, I think all of those things, along with just being really driven and sometimes not sleeping, and just being like, right, I'm going to graft, have ultimately got me into the role that I'm in now.
Yeah. So there's hard work involved, but there's also, like I was hearing you saying there, about really owning your own personal development, because, and I know we've had that conversation before, because it was a big light bulb moment for me when an HR director said that once. Like, it sounds stupid now when I say it, but it's like, well, obviously it's your responsibility. But I think a lot of people can be like, when am I going to get this training? When is the company going to do this for me? And it's like, no, it's your career. Go out and get it yourself.
Yeah.
But what you've also done is made that clear to other people, because I think, and again, I'm doing myself a disservice here, but I know there were points in my career where I wanted things and I didn't say it. I kind of, a little bit like I can be in my relationship, like I sometimes would like him to be a mind reader, and I'd quite like, because sometimes I wanted my line managers to be mind readers. But if you're clear on that with other people, then you can get the support and the advocates and stuff. And then obviously mentors is such an important part of it. And so do you think, we're flipping around a bit here, but you obviously, when you were at Co-ops, set up the Flourish in Food mentoring scheme. And tell us the backstory on that. Like, how did that come about? And is it linked really to your career progression?
No, not really. So I knew I'd personally benefited from mentoring. And I think a lot of peers my age probably hadn't even thought about what mentoring was, but I'd gotten a mentor very, very early on in my time at Co-op and had unofficial mentors, just not really called them mentors. But Flourish and Food came around because of essentially the COVID pandemic. So I'd spotted a opportunity to support students that were having their placement schemes cancelled, essentially. And I referred to it earlier on, the sandwich degree is the best start to your time in the food industry. And I thought it's just really sad that all of these students are losing their opportunity because of the pandemic. They were having their placement years cancelled, essentially.
Oh, I didn't know that. I guess they just didn't want more people on site, right?
Yeah, I guess like a lot of teams were on furlough, right? So instead of adding another person into the furlough team, they just cancelled their placement schemes. So I thought, right, there's all of this talent within the industry. The majority of us are here to support the future talent of the industry, right? So surely there's going to be a few people like me that want to support those in a bit of a loss and kind of not sure what's going to go next. So gosh, it was a PowerPoint slide that I'd pulled together thinking it wouldn't get very much traction, might get 5 or 10 people offering help. I think I got like 100 people. This was back in 2020, about 100 people offering support to mentor essentially undergraduates that had their placement schemes cancelled, or undergraduates that were looking for a mentor in general.
Yeah.
And it took off. And at the beginning, there was Joe, who's been on the podcast previously, and Catherine, who were two of the mentors that signed up to my initial scheme. And they both reached out to me independently saying, really, really enjoyed taking part, love what you're doing. Do you need any help? And I was like, yes, I do need help. I don't know what I'm doing. I like it had grown arms and legs. I was like, oh my God, I'm now back kind of working full time. I don't know how to actually manage this. So it was nice to have two passionate people as well. And that's where Flourish and Food came around. So we now do 2 cohorts a year where we essentially matchmake between a mentor and a mentee. So we take applications and we literally read every application to understand what the mentee is looking for and what the mentor is looking for, to make sure we get those pairings as close as possible to being the perfect match. Almost a bit like Hinge, but for mentoring. Which maybe that can be our new slogan. And not just
an algorithm doing it, actual real life people.
Yeah. So we literally sit there and read every one, and we usually have around 60, 70 pairings for each cohort, and we're on cohort, I think we've just completed cohort 8. So we've had hundreds, and not every relationship is successful, don't get me wrong, but I'd say 50%, we've probably got about a 50% success rate, and that means 50% of people are experiencing real benefit from a mentor and vice versa, because our mentors through reverse mentoring are learning lots from their mentees too.
Yeah. And me and Lucy are always massive advocates for the scheme, because not only I've been a mentor and definitely got that reverse mentoring thing from my mentee, you know, like learning and opening my eyes, because I'm a dinosaur now, to like Gen Z and all of that sort of stuff, but also being mentored myself, because last year I thought, well, you're never too old. Never too soon, and you're never too old. It's made a massive difference to me and my business this year, because just of having somebody that's just that little step ahead of you. Like, it doesn't have to be masses ahead. It can be masses ahead.
Not at all.
And doesn't even need to be that much ahead at all, does it? It's just different perspectives, like you say, like different departments that they've worked in, and just getting you to think differently. Just actually having that time and space to talk to somebody. Massive.
Definitely.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick breather here to hear from our fantastic sponsors. They help keep the podcast going, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Ensuring food safety and quality is crucial. That's why businesses trust Microsearch Laboratories, part of the IFP Labs Group. UCAS-accredited Microsearch offers microbiological, nutritional and allergen testing for food, drink and water, delivering fast results and expert support. With over 30 years of experience, trusted by leading manufacturers and retailers, and a commitment to sustainability, Microsearch is your partner in product safety. Visit micro-search.co.uk to learn more.
Whether you're developing new products or supporting those who do, the MPD Fundamentals course gives you the tools to take ideas from concept to launch. We'll break down the stage gate process and proven method used by industry leaders into simple bite-sized steps you can put into practice straight away. You'll gain both the technical know-how and the soft skills you need to deliver real results. Click the link in the show notes to join. Let's get started. And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's dive right back in.
And actually, in the early days, we probably were matching a mentee who was an undergrad with somebody with 20 years of experience, which if I think about me when I was at university, I'd have been absolutely buzzing. But actually, for some students, that's really scary and really intimidating. Like, you kind of got to take your own self out of it and put yourself in someone else's shoes. And I'm like, actually, no, that undergrad would really benefit from somebody that's just graduated that might have gone through the placement scheme assessment centres 2 years prior. And actually, they may be able to support them in how to get prepared for those assessment centres, or how to get prepared for writing your first CV, or how to get prepared for your first interview. Because you don't need somebody with 20 years of experience to navigate you on that. And actually, it's a little bit more real life when it's somebody that's just that one step ahead of you.
Yeah, it is an amazing scheme. And we hadn't really planned to talk about this, Cameron. I'm going to say it, and you can tell me to take it out if you need to, if you want me to. But I was going to say, like, the next step really is to get some partners and sponsors for Flourish, isn't it?
Yeah,
because
that's right.
You need cash, really, to scale it even more.
Yeah, that's right. So, like I alluded to earlier, it is very manual, and we read every application which we want to do, but it's even manual down to how we send out our emails with parents, how we generate all of our content. It involves a really small team of volunteers that we all work in the food industry, and we all do it on the side as just a little nice to do. And it is a real nice to do, but if we can get some sponsorship behind us to make things a little bit easier to do it, it will definitely help us to be able to grow Flourish beyond what it is currently.
Yeah.
So yes, we are looking for some sponsors. So if you are listening and you are a business who would like to support Flourish and Food, we would love to hear from you. Or individuals. It doesn't need to be a business.
Yeah. Well, Fearless Foodies will be one of those. I've already committed to that on a WhatsApp Amy. Somewhere. But yeah, we'll make sure that when this episode goes out, details of how people can get in touch about that also go out, because I think it's such an amazing scheme. And I get it. You need that leg up to keep going in the next level. So going back to you, Cam, like I'm thinking back through what you've talked about in your career, and, you know, like you have risen through the ranks quite quickly. You talked about how you've done it from the perspective of, you know, getting mentors on board and all of that sort of stuff. How have you managed to do it in terms of, you know, when you get promoted and stuff, and then all of a sudden your peers, you're now more senior to your peers, or you might be working with somebody in your team that's quite a few years older than you. Like, how do you manage that?
Really good question. I think I try to not think of anybody by age or by skill set or by experience. I try to think I've been put in that position for a reason, and therefore it's my job to be able to support, nourish, coach that individual regardless of where they're at in their career. And I think I talked about how important personal development is, but it's one of the first things I'll do with a member of the team. I'm not here to do your job for you. You're here to do your job. I'm here to facilitate and make it easier if I can, and support you in that journey wherever you are on it. So getting to know the person, getting to know where they're at on their personal development journey, and understanding their needs and wants are important to me, and as they should be to any manager. But if I can bring out the best of that person, then they'll respect me regardless of whether I'm 20 years younger, 5 years younger, less experienced than them. I would never claim to be more experienced than somebody in my team. I'm more keen to ensure that I'm in the best place to be able to guide and support and kind of drive them forward.
Yeah. So it's almost like having that person at the centre of it, thinking about what they need and how you can coach them to get the best out of themselves.
Yeah.
As opposed, because a lot of people, and I see this with my coaching clients and stuff, we step up into a more senior role in the same kind of job we've done before, but, a bit more senior, and we get ourselves pulled down into the weeds, doing the do, because we know how to do it. And we don't want people to think we're a bit flaky and we're not willing to do the job and all of that sort of stuff. But it's that mindset switch, isn't it? Once you're moving into leadership, that isn't your job anymore.
It's a complete mindset switch. And I think when you first make that move into a leadership position, you can automatically default into being like, right, I need to do the do still. But actually, I've not been employed to do the do. I've been employed to lead the team and manage the team and make sure we're getting the best out of our team when we do so. So I think a lot of it relies on having the right behaviours ultimately, because I don't need to be able to create fantastic food. My team need to be able to create fantastic food. I need to have the right behaviours to manage the team and get the best out of them. So I think my emphasis is always placed on you guys are the experts. I'm simply here to support.
Yeah. Did you find that hard to start with, like stepping away from the food a little bit?
Yes, I found it. Well, I found it really hard stepping away from food and commercial firstly. And then when I came into a leadership position, equally hard at first. But I think it was probably easier at first because I always had younger colleagues when I first became a leader. And that is definitely easier because they require a lot of the hand-holding and they require a lot of the kind of background information to be able to execute the role because they're still finding their feet. So it was almost kind of like a gradual transition into a leadership position and stepping away from doing the do. But definitely hard at first. And then I think it becomes the norm.
Yeah, and it's like you just have to switch that mindset, don't you?
It's almost like your hats, isn't it? The mentality of who are you in the room? What is your position in that room? And what hat are you wearing at that point in time?
Yeah. And actually being able to let go of having to appear to be the expert all the time. Like knowing that your role has changed and it isn't about, I need to be an expert in this small thing. Your remit's broader. Because at Tesco's, you've got quite a broad category, haven't you? You've got quite a lot.
It's quite.
I heard that sigh in there.
It's quite a great spectrum of categories, but a big spectrum of categories at the same time. And ultimately, I don't know the ingredient deck of all of the products that my team are creating because I can't hold that in my head. So ultimately, you're the expert. And if I've got a question that I'm not able to answer and our director asks the question, I'm not afraid to say, look, you're going to have to give me 5 minutes. I need to check in with the team because I'm not sure of the answer. Yeah. That's fine because your team are the experts and your team are there to know that kind of information.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I think that's also really difficult, going from the person that knows everything to the person that knows a lot about a little. So I know a lot about what the team are up to, but I don't know the nitty gritty. That's absolutely fine because I don't need to know the nitty gritty. I need to know the nitty gritty when they need support in sorting something out. Yeah. But it's the flip of the hat, I guess.
Yeah. And not feeling like it makes you less of a asset to a business by not knowing all of that detail. I see so much of that where people struggle to let go of that and actually they end up burning out because they're they're staying up till midnight the night before a presentation thinking that they need to know every single, like, what if they ask me this question? What if you just have a stock response that is I don't know, but I'll find out for you.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
like it's about having that inner confidence, isn't it? That it's okay to say that.
Inner
And the
confidence
support
to
and
own your
being in a
space.
business that allows you to do that as well.
Definitely.
It's
And
safe to do that.
there'll be many businesses where it probably isn't safe to do that.
Yeah.
But I would always hope that I breed a atmosphere or
Culture.
culture. Yeah, culture is exactly the word, where the team are able to be honest and able to own their space. And you know what? We all get things wrong and we all forget things. We're humans, not robots. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Until AI is doing our jobs for us.
God,
Let's
not. Let's not think about it.
But it is, I get the impression, I've never worked in retail. I've obviously worked with retailers, but I get the impression from the outside that it's very, very fast paced.
It's super fast paced, and what I would say is no 2 days are the same. So I can go from one day being in the office, reviewing products with the team, approving their new creations, to next day on a factory line, seeing products come down it, hopefully looking fantastic. And then next day being out on a food tour, looking at kind of into the future and what's next. So yeah, no 2 days are the same, and it's incredibly fast. And when you need a rest, you really need a rest.
Yeah, I was going to say, so how do you do this and do that massive long round trip and not burn out, Cam? How do you look after yourself?
Yeah, I think this one's really apt because with the lengthy commute, I could burn out very, very quickly if I didn't prioritize kind of work-life balance and prioritize my own health, both mentally and physically, because it does take its toll. I'm really strict on my time now. So both in work and out of work to ensure that I get that work-life balance. So personally, within my diary, I block cam time and it's in my diary in yellow, cam time. And essentially that means no meetings. And if that meeting comes in, it's getting declined because ultimately we spend a lot of our time in meetings and then we don't necessarily give ourselves a lot of time to do the do out of the meetings. So when you've got 5 actions that come out of that meeting, when is it happening? Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So I'm very strict on, I have cam time numerous times through the week, and that is my time to do the actions or just think. So if I'm trying to future plan, forward plan, I need that time to think, and I need that time without noise around me, whether it's my phone ringing, whether it's Teams pinging, whether it's email stacking up, I just need the time out. So I do that. And I also, if I review my diary each week. So on a Friday, I'll look forward to the next week. I'll look forward, but I do look forward as well. And when I see a crazy diary, instead of having this freak out, I'll start to be like, right, actually, Monday, I've only got 2 30-minute gaps. So I'm going to put a full block that says no more meetings. And that is my signal to the team to say, right, I'm at capacity on that day. If it's important, obviously give me a call and I'll pick it up. But that's me saying, no more meetings, because I need to be able to prioritize what's already on and then give myself headspace to be able to go for a walk at lunch, have something to eat, go to the toilet, which sometimes I forget to do, and I'm literally there with my legs crossed. Yeah. But you've got to prioritize yourself, because ultimately that burnout leads to you not being present in the business and not being able to do the job that you're being employed to do. So it's getting to that balance is really difficult, and it's really difficult depending on where you are in your career as well. Yeah.
God, I wish Lucy was here listening to you right now, but she's burnt out in bed. Because it's those lessons, isn't it? It is that you have to prioritize yourself. Like I'm hearing loads of stuff around, like you would just be, I mean, you don't need coaching, Cam, because like around this stuff, but I'm sat here beaming, like thinking these are the things that often come up in coaching sessions. So many people talking about how they don't get time to do time to have a wee and whatever. Like time blocking is such an amazing thing, and having those boundaries and being clear with your team on like, it's okay to come to me at these times, it's not okay on these times, is so important. And that time and headspace, because when we are running from one thing to another, you're not necessarily being rational. No. So sometimes, even if it is just that you give yourself that half an hour to think, you're going to be much more productive for the rest of the day.
100%.
Because you've just managed to get your nervous system back into the right state.
In check. I know when there'll be times where I don't give myself any gaps, and I can feel my head getting tighter and tighter and tighter because there's too much information. I'm not sure what to do with it. And at some points I'm like, right, boss, team, I'm taking half an hour because I need to go for a walk outside. I just need some fresh air because this afternoon is not going to be very productive unless I take that time for myself. And I've learned that over time. If I think back to my early days within the industry, I'd get into the office at 8, leave at 6. So I've already done 2 hours more than I meant to. I'd log on and I'd do some more work at home. Why was I doing that? I was doing it to prove myself why I was doing it. But now I know I can do my job and I know I can do a good job within those hours as long as I am productive and as long as I make the time to do the job.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. I don't know that the new generations coming through will do that and log on late at night. I don't know. You probably are seeing more of it than me.
Yeah.
So he's shaking his head, listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it was a bad thing that we worked such stupid hours.
100%. Gen Zs and Alphas definitely approach working hours and work-life balance in a much healthier and a better way than we've historically done. So it's definitely not a bad thing. And actually, we can learn a lot from the new generations that are coming into the industry because they respect their time more than we probably did. And they respect their family time, like the time that we're not being paid for it. So let's engage with family and friends rather than engage with a laptop and a PowerPoint presentation.
Well, exactly. I have this whole thing, like I swear at some point in the future, it's going to be some big keynote speech from me or something. But it's like ultimately consumers are going to have to pay more for food at some point because of lots of factors. But one of the factors being because we're already... the industry works the people in it so hard a lot of the time, and we have to do it because margins are so tight. Yeah. But at some point, that's going to have to give because the workforce is not going to keep working at that rate. Working.
Yeah,
it's like a bigger picture piece, really.
It's not for the faint-hearted, right?
Yeah, no, it's not. And you don't, and then that's the thing. People don't stay, do they? If they're don't have a level of resilience. But I would like us for it not to have to be such a difficult place to work, and that we don't have to burn ourselves out just to get those promotions and stuff. And I think there's a lot to be learned from Gen Z.
Yes, for sure.
So if you had to, Cam, describe working in retail, I'm just thinking based on all the conversations we've just had, describe working in retail in one word, what would that word be?
The first word that comes to mind is crazy, but I will go with rewarding.
Okay.
It's super rewarding. I think it's interesting. I was out for lunch with my fiance's cousin a few weeks back, and she's like, what do you actually do? Like, what is a product developer? And I was like, well, we create the food. That went really northern then. Create the food that ends up in Tesco supermarket shelves. And she was like, oh, right, okay. So you essentially influence what we eat as a nation. I was like, actually, you know what? I've never thought about it like that, but you are absolutely right. So it is rewarding because when you go out to the supermarkets and see your products on the shelves, it's an amazing feeling. And whether it's your first product or your 200th product, it's still amazing to see on the shelves.
And when somebody puts it in the basket in front of you, and you kind of want to tap them on the shoulder and go, oh, I did that.
Yeah, thank you for buying our innovation rather than going the yellow sticker. Yeah. Yeah, no, that is very rewarding. But it's also it's a massive responsibility, right? We are essentially feeding a nation, and it needs to be the right quality. It needs to have the right nutrition. There's a lot of thinking that goes into the products that we create. So yeah, massively rewarding, but it doesn't come without its responsibility.
Yeah, because I just thought sustainability and all of that as well, like all the stuff that we're getting so much more conscious of. And I think there's a lot, we talked about technical having a lot of weight on their shoulders. And I think MPD sometimes gets kind of like dismissed as a little bit fluffy and this, that and the other. And actually, I mean, that's I lit a fire then, listeners.
There's steam coming out of my ears now. No, you're absolutely right, though. Yeah.
And it's not, it's a massive responsibility. And
I think that's actually in me when I did my commercial role. That's when I very much learned the empathy on both sides of the fence. So I think when I was in development, I was always like, why is this buyer not letting me do this innovation? Why are they making it so hard? And then when I was in buying, I'm like, why is this developer not understanding that I've got to balance my P&L? And I think I massively now respect both roles and understand why they're both so important to getting the end product. But I have a newfound, I guess, appreciation of the work that both sides do. I think that's quite nice when people move from side to side. they understand a bit more about development, because some people do think it's fluffy, and it is so far from it. It can be really, really stressful, and it can be really hard work.
Yeah.
The majority of the time it is.
Yeah, and I think people see the trawls and the,
they see the fun part.
A nice lunch and stuff like that. But actually the reality is a lot of hard work, a lot of project management, a lot of problem solving, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So do you use any resources, like if there was anything that you could say that you couldn't live without work-wise that helps you with all of that craziness?
God, it's a really good question. I don't use any, like we talk about project management tools. I don't use project management tools. I rely heavily on my diary being my schedule, essentially. And
well, I heard you saying you've got your colour coding.
I've got my colour coding.
Because when you said yellow, I was like, oh, that's my personal development time. It's yellow in my calendar.
Well, that's personal time. Yellow is personal time. I've got a team colour. I've got a supplier colour. I've got meetings colours. So I do rely heavily on that to kind of dictate what my week looks like. But I think the biggest thing for me is the planning ahead element and taking that time the week before to almost look forward to the next week and be like, right, actually, do I need to be attending all these meetings, or is somebody from my team on there and therefore it's been delegated? Is there one of my peers on there and therefore one of us can attend and take notes and report back? So almost being really diligent with your time to make sure you're getting the most out of the time that you're given. Yeah. Because ultimately, sometimes you go to a meeting, there's 20 people in the room, probably only needed 5 people in there. So I think just being hypercritical on what's in the diary to make sure that I strike that right balance between being present and being able to do the do. Yeah. So ruthless diary management, strong boundaries, and, being clear with other people on that, and what you are and aren't going to get involved in. And not being afraid to say, I'm on a call or I've got a clash on that day. Not moving your life around within work to satisfy one person's request. Yeah. Ultimately trying to balance that, the need and the want. Yeah. Well, you obviously do a fabulous job of it, Cam, because I only ever hear good things about you. Well, that might be a little bit biased. That might be just the bias of the people that I hang around with. I'm quite good friends with a lot of the Flourish team, for instance. But, so I think the people listening are going to be like, this is just amazing. They're going to want to go and look at Flourishing Food. So if they just Google Flourishing Food, they'll find that. Where can they find you, Cam? Head over to LinkedIn. So I'm definitely not as active as you, Amy. But I am. That will be a hard job. But I am fairly active on LinkedIn. So yeah, drop me an ad. It's Cameron Rigg. More than happy to chat to anybody who has a strong interest in the food industry and an interest in supporting and developing the future talent within our industry, because it is going to get more difficult. There's less and less people coming into the industry. So the more people we can keep and the more people we can get passionate about the amazing jobs that are on offer within our industry, the better. Yeah. Fabulous. Thank you so much, Cam. And yeah, it's been absolute pleasure talking to you. You too, Amy. Thank you so much for having me. Me and hopefully Lucy will see everybody next time.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, rate and review us. It really helps us reach more food industry pros like you.
For more resources, head over to our website, overfoodsake.co.uk, and join our mailing list to stay in touch.
And if you'd like to connect with us, come say hello on LinkedIn. We're both there, Lucy Wager and Amy Wilkinson.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.